The Dodgers are built to be unstoppable in 2026, which means if they fall short, in my opinion, there's one place to look.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm here, Ruiz. That's Travis Rodgers, and it's time for Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's show, Will Klein, flash in the pan or a legit bullpen weapon? The offseason checklist if it's officially complete. But first, what could actually derail this machine in 2026, Travis?
Yeah, who knows, right? That's what makes us turn these games on. There's a million things that can always go wrong. We'll get into it next on this episode of Locked On Dodgers, which is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with a bet on FanDuel. Play your game.
Travis is your weekday afternoon soundtrack on 710 ESPN LA, riding from 3 to 6 with the Travis and DeMarco Show. And if you're not in SoCal or you're nowhere near a radio, the ESPN LA app makes sure that you're still locked in. As for me, when I'm not calling USC football games in Espanol, this is my home base, talking Dodgers, breaking things down, and doing it with you. If this is your first time checking out the show, welcome. You didn't stumble in by accident. And if you're an everydayer, you already know this podcast runs because of you. Are you watching on YouTube? Please hit that like button, jump in the comments section, and subscribe so you're here every day. Listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods, a quick 5-star rating helps more Dodgers fans find the show. And remember, the Locked On Dodgers listener line is always open 24/7, 365. The number is 279-3-LOCKED or 279-356-2533. You can leave us a voicemail or a text literally any time. All right. Let's kick things off with the only way this team fails is obviously the Dodgers. They're the favorites. They're sitting at plus 210 to win the World Series, according to our friends over at FanDuel. Second best odds, the Yankees at plus 1,000. For those of you that aren't gamblers or don't understand gambling, you can bet $100 for the Dodgers to win the World Series, and you would win 210 plus your original 100 if they do. The next best odds, you could bet 100 on the Yankees, and if they win it, you would win 1,000 plus your 100. That's not a gap right there, Travis. That's a canyon. And that it shows us it's ridiculous for the Dodgers. They're stacked.
Yeah, that is why I think a lot of people feel the way they feel about the way that Major League Baseball's economics are set up, and the fact that the Dodgers have, leveraged those to their advantage the way they have, that those odds are so, incredibly far apart. That's not how it goes. Like if you look at the football odds, for instance, next season, the Seattle Seahawks are the favorite, but they are ahead of the LA Rams by a hair. They're basically exactly the same, meaning everybody's got a kind of a shot. In baseball, this is a very different thing. But like we know, Harry, baseball is a different animal. The best team doesn't always win. In fact, the best team, barely wins half the time. So there's a lot of road to go between now and the time we get to October, and a million different things can happen. And clearly the Dodgers are heavy favorites, but that doesn't mean that they'll win everything.
This team went into the offseason already locked and loaded, and yet they went out there and added two elite talents like Kyle Tucker and Edwin Diaz to fix the only soft spots that they had. On paper, it feels unfair, but here's the thing. Last season, it felt like everything that could go wrong went wrong, and they still won. Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, they missed significant time. Shohei Ohtani didn't even take the mound until mid-June and didn't pitch 5 innings until late August. Mookie Betts had his worst season at the plate as a pro. Muncy and Edman missed big chunks of the season. Michael Conforto was pretty much the everyday left fielder and was the worst batter in the sport. And yet, division champs, World Series champs, back-to-back. So what could actually stop them? And Travis, I'm going to kick off with what I hope never happens in the next 8 years. But option one, Shohei Ohtani sees kryptonite. Let's stop pretending. The Dodgers' ceiling and maybe their entire margin of error revolves around one human being that seems to be a superhero, Shohei Ohtani. If he sees kryptonite, everything shifts because both as a pitcher and as a batter, he is outstanding. He is a back-to-back MVP in his lone 2 seasons with the Dodgers. And Travis, they already had a super talented team, but he was added to this roster, and he just got them over the hump, and the Dodgers were able to win the World Series. So that, for me, is the big if. What if Shohei isn't Shohei?
Yeah, I mean, clearly he's their best player. He's the best player in the whole league, and by a fairly large margin. I just can't envision a scenario where he plays poorly. A scenario where he is, injured. Sure, that's always a possibility with every athlete. But I don't know if I agree with you, Harry, that if he's out, it changes, but they're still the favorite. Like the injury thing, I think, is less of an equalizer than it would be almost under any normal circumstances because of the redundancies in their lineup. As unbelievably talented as Shohei Ohtani is, if you just plucked him out and threw him on, let's just say you put him on the Minnesota Twins, okay, in an alternate universe, he's on a totally different team that's not really a factor here. The Dodgers are still the favorites, and by a lot, because of their pitching, because of the rest of their lineup. So I don't know if he is the thing that if he's out, everything changes. If he's out, it's different for sure. I'm not arguing that, but I don't think that it goes from they're heavy favorites to now all of a sudden they're chasing someone else. I don't think it goes like that. I think the scenario for me is injuries are obviously the big one where you're missing a bunch of guys and it doesn't happen. But putting that aside, because that's true for every team, right? Injuries are the wild card for all 30 teams in Major League Baseball. I think if you're painting a doomsday scenario for them, and again, I think this is, like you said, this is worst case scenario. This is not likely, but this is that here just kind of going around. Freddie Freeman gets old overnight, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, that is not the Freddie Freeman that we've seen. Freddie Freeman, for the first time in his career, the last couple of years, has been dealing with some injuries along the way that I think have marginally impacted his performance. He's still one of the best in baseball. He's still Freddie Freeman. He's still going to hit about 300. He's going to have about 40 doubles. He's going to hit about 20 home runs. He's just that incredibly consistent guy, but you see a dip there. Mookie's dip was not a bad year, but it's the beginning of a totally different type of player in Mookie Betts, and he becomes a shortstop that's all glove, no bat. That's terrifying. And by the way, I think that's one of the more interesting storylines coming into this year is whether or not that was just a bad year or this is the beginning of something different. Max Muncy misses a bunch of time and just does not have the impact on the team that he has for a long time because his thing kind of goes up and down a little bit, but it usually kind of stays more towards the top, and maybe he has one of those years where he's down. Andy Pajes doesn't bounce back from a terrible October. That Kyle Tucker struggles to adjust to life in Los Angeles and doesn't fit in and just never really finds his groove. That Teoscar Hernandez gets old like that. And by the way, that's a real possibility too. I think you started to see some of that. The problem with all of these scenarios, Harry, is they still have that pitching. They still have that unbelievably deep starting rotation, a bullpen that is loaded with options. And look, we saw last year, guys get hurt all the time. But when you have guys like Emmett Sheehan and Justin Robleski and River Ryan, Gavin Stone is coming back this year as well. You have all of these guys that even if all of your frontline guys drop, you still have a lot of frontline guys waiting to pitch. But you put together 2 or 3 of those 5 or 6 things that I mentioned, and all of a sudden that gap that we talked about to open the segment gets far more narrow. But even with, first of all of those things are not going to happen. Maybe 1, maybe 2 in a terrible scenario, maybe 3 of them. But even if all 3 of them happened, they're still the favorites to win the division.
And who was the bat that carried the Dodgers throughout most of the season until a dip towards the end? Will Smith. And I think it was poetic justice that he was the man that hit the home run in extra innings in Game 7 to win it all, where it was like, hey, man, when everybody was struggling, Will Smith was the guy that we were like, hey, man, a catcher might end up being the batting champ in the National League. Yeah. It didn't end up happening, but, man, Will was consistent as hell, and I feel that could be another reason. And look, Dodger fans, we are all family. We love the Dodgers. We love rocking with the boys in blue. We're just putting it out there as a topic because Is it right or not, Travis, to say it's championship or bust? It is a three-peat or it's failure with the way that this team has invested for the 2026 season and beyond, with the way that they have stacked piles of money and throw them out there for the best players in baseball. We want them to win the World Series. We celebrate as much as you guys. There's clips of Travis out there on social media from the ESPN LA watch parties of him just enjoying himself. Or same thing with me out in Lincoln, Nebraska, out of all places in the world I could have been. I was out there calling USC Nebraska, and I was finishing the post-game show when Miguel Rojas hit the home run, and I was on camera. I was on the air, and I had to go to a commercial break because I had to just let that celebration go and throw an F-bomb here or there with the enjoyment of LFG, right? Instead of just being like, let's go. I need to get it out. We enjoy the Dodgers winning, but there's also the possibility there's 30 teams in Major League Baseball. 29 are going to be trying to knock out the Dodgers. And for a lot of time, from 1989 through 2023, the Dodgers were only able to win it all once. Now they've done it in back-to-back years. We hope that they do it in 3 years in a row, but everybody's going to be throwing their best punch at the boys in blue. And I insist, for me, it's Shohei. If something happens with Shohei, I know that team is very, very deep. But what if the two-way workload finally catches up? What if the command wobbles when he's up there at the plate, and then that ends up affecting him mentally when he goes up at the plate? He's Superman for us, but every now and then you go and watch a Superman movie, and there's moments where he's taking the best from Lex Luthor. So it's like, hey, there's going to be times where he is not that 50-50 machine that we've seen in back-to-back seasons. I insist, for me, it's Shohei. Travis, if you had to pinpoint one where it's like, okay, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, that they did go wrong last year, but one that you could see, is it Father Time, like you said at the beginning?
Yeah, it's definitely that. The Dodgers are the oldest team in baseball by a pretty comfortable margin, and eventually the bill comes due on that. So I don't think it's coming this year because of all the players we mentioned, and I do think that Shohei is so remarkably talented that he can cover up some of the issues that some of those older players may have. And then the last thing is just the randomness of baseball. Like we talked about, the Blue Jays were a cleat away, a catch away, a double play away from winning the World Series. So, that everything can go right and they could still not win the World Series. And that's just the sport that we love. That's the reason that we turn it on. And, they don't have to beat the Dodgers over 162 games. They just got to beat them 4 times in a week. And that can happen to anybody.
No doubt about it. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Anything short of another parade feels like underachievement with this roster. That pressure right there, it's real. But next on Locked On Dodgers, why should we feel positive? Because LA just completed one of the cleanest, most aggressive off seasons we've ever seen in the sports. They didn't leave a single loose end.
The Winter Games are officially here, and if you are anything like the rest of us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years or so, right? That's why following the games on FanDuel just makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to all of that incredible Olympic action, right? The drama of curling matches. I know it sounds crazy, but they start slow and they get intense quickly. They're awesome. No joke. They're awesome. Speed skating races decided by mere inches. Hockey games, those always feel different when you start putting flags on people's uniforms. That starts from the jump for sure. And even niche events become must-watch events when you're fully locked in to all the great competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from the very beginning right up until the very end. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game.
Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Dodgers with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnDodgers.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Checklist complete. no loose ends. Andrew Freeman reportedly thought that there was about a 5% chance they could land both Edwin Diaz and Kyle Tucker. That's what he told the California Sports. Well, the Dodgers ended both. That alone felt like the offseason mic drop, but they weren't done. They already had Miguel Rojas return for a final ride in Dodger blue. Evan Phillips this week is back in the fold as he rehabs from Tommy John, and he'll be a midseason reinforcement waiting in the wings. But then, as pitchers and catchers reported at Camelback Ranch yesterday, and then came the quiet but most important moves for the end and just putting the cherry on top. Max Muncy extension, one more guaranteed year, team-friendly structure, club flexibility after that. And then Kike Hernandez drops the news himself. He's back. 1-year deal, another October weapon. Travis, it was the gift that keeps on giving for Dodger fans this offseason.
Yeah, the Kike thing is really funny because there wasn't a Dodger fan out there that thought that Kike was going to go somewhere else. I mean, you knew he was coming back to the Dodgers, that, you know, he's just a Dodger. There's no other way to put it. He's an incredibly, he's done the thing that I think is incredibly difficult to do, which is become a fan favorite, become a legend of one of the legendary sports franchises in a big city that's got two of everything, right? We got two baseball teams, football teams, basketball teams, hockey teams, two big universities. Like, we got everything there is, two MLS teams. Like, there's everything here. And he's not a star, and yet everybody likes him and wants him back. And you do that by being incredibly clutch, and you do that by being a very engaging personality, and he is both of those. So it's great to have him back, and it's a weird deal too. Like, everybody's like, Kike could hit 200 from opening day until October 1st, and everybody's like, it's fine. It's fine. Who cares? And then all of a sudden, when we flip to October, it's all right. Here we go. Here comes Kike's time. So good for him. And that he's back is great news, and great news for Dodger fans, and expected news. The Muncy thing, I think, is really interesting because, look, I really like Max Muncy, and he's so important to the Dodgers. Like we were just talking last segment. There are so many stars, and Muncy falls into some category between star and role player. He's neither of those things. He's kind of in the middle. Max Muncy could have left the Dodgers at several opportunities and gone and probably gotten a little bit more money somewhere else, but that dude wants to win. That dude wants to win World Series after World. He's become a team leader. When you hear them talk, he's always one of the guys that is quoted. He's an incredibly clutch player. We talk about Rojas's home run. We talk about Will Smith's home run in game 7. Muncy hit that home run in the 8th inning to get him a little closer, to allow the rest of that stuff to happen. So that he wants to stay, that he wants to win, I think is remarkably important. And he is the quietest 30 home run bat you're ever going to see. And he just keeps climbing that ladder of most Dodger home runs ever. Like, you think Mike Piazza, you think Eric Karros. Now, look, Shohei's probably going to smash it in a handful of years, but that's just Shohei. But there's going to be a time, and it'll last, it won't last forever, but there's going to be a time where Max Muncy has hit more home runs as a Los Angeles Dodger than anyone else ever. And that's pretty remarkable. And then the Phillips thing, I think, is really interesting because it caught me by surprise a little bit. It really did. That it did not feel like something that they had to do. Obviously, it's something that they wanted to do. You mentioned that he'll be ready to go sometime around the middle of the season, which, that's when guys typically start to drop a little bit. And you need to start to, backload that rotation, backload that bullpen. And we've seen him when he's at his best. He's very, very good as well. So I'm with you. The offseason that they've put together is about as good as you could reasonably hope for.
Yeah, and Phillips, in yesterday's Dave Roberts media availability in Arizona, he said that Phillips earned the right to go and check the market and see what was available for him. And then on February 12th, he's like, you know what? Okay, I'll sign with the Dodgers. He'll be a midseason reinforcement. Same case as with Brock Stewart, who the Dodgers traded for last season. So those guys are in the wings waiting to go from IL to active roster once they're 100% ready. And I'm going to go with Max Muncy as well right here. He became the minor league signing who turned into a franchise pillar. Travis, with Clayton Kershaw's retirement, Max Muncy is the longest tenured Dodgers player on the roster. Since 2018 until now, he's been a cornerstone of this franchise. And that's not just roster maintenance, that's culture continuity. And I feel like it was key. You don't want to have him on a lame duck contract where it's like this is the last year of his contract and we're okay with him leaving the franchise surprised if he leaves, if he doesn't sign another deal in the offseason. No, they took care of him, and it's a $7 million deal for next season. And then there's a club option for $10 million in 2028 and a $3 million buyout. So worst case scenario, he makes $10 million extra. Best case scenario, $17 million extra. He's going to finish his career in Dodger blue. And then Kike, I mean, this guy, he just becomes a different beast, a different species. Whenever October rolls around, he's a franchise leader. And a lot of people just put him as a vibes guy. He's way more than that. He delivers in the biggest moments when you need him. Who can forget that double play? I honestly thought that the ball was going to drop in Game 6 and that Toronto would have had a chance to potentially tie the game right there. He makes the catch. I'm like, great, 2 outs. Then he throws it a second to Miggy Rowe. They get the other route, and I was like, holy crap, we got a Game 7 tomorrow. It's just consistency from this guy. And like you said, he's never going to be a Shohei. He's never going to be a Mookie Betts or Freddie Freeman, who in the future are going to have their numbers up there at Dodger Stadium. But nobody who ever lived in the 2010s, 2020s and loves Dodgers baseball is ever going to forget Kike Hernandez.
Yeah, I know you said he's not just a vibes guy. I think that's a good way to say it. He is a vibes guy, but he's more than that. He's also an incredibly useful player, and his versatility, you can literally put him in 8 if you want to talk mop-up pitching too. Like, you could put him almost anywhere on the field and feel pretty good about him holding his own and getting it done. So it's great to have him back. And the Muncy thing, I think, is really, really interesting because, fast forward 20 years when this Dodger run is long gone and we're on to whatever it is that we're on to in the year 2046. Dodger fans that are real Dodger fans that have really kind of been with this team through all of it will remember Max Muncy in a way that they're not going to remember, because you said he's been here through all of this or most of this, and not just been here, he's been a part of it all. He's been in the middle of the order for all of it all. He's hit big home runs in a bunch of, I think he's got 16 postseason home runs. Like, he is an incredibly valuable member of this team. He's an elder player, like you mentioned, and I'm thrilled that he's back. I hope he stays healthy, because if he's healthy, you can put 30 home runs up on the board for sure. That's just what he did. And he's gotten better defensively too. We kind of didn't mention that. When he first started, it was kind of like, I don't know, man. He's over there on ice skates and this doesn't look good. He's not anymore. He's become a very capable third baseman, and I'm thrilled that he's back.
And what's the biggest sign, in my opinion, of a great player is that whenever he's not there, man, does his team miss him. And Max Muncy, whenever he's not in that lineup, you're like, how can I stretch this pitcher to go instead of having just 9 pitches so far? There's an at-bat that I know he's going to have to work for it. And Max Muncy, yes, he's a bomb guy. He can hit home runs left and right, but he can take walks like crazy as well. And here's the crazy part too, Travis. They are pretty much considered Dodgers lifers, but they started their careers in other organizations. Kike Hernandez, Houston, then Miami, then the Dodgers, and he had that little 2.5-year hiatus over at Boston where he is loved as well. Then he got traded for by the Dodgers. Then you go over with Max. He was an Oakland Athletic. He got DFA'd. He was in the minors. Dodgers bring him, and boom, he's a cornerstone of the franchise. And it's like, hey, that also shows you the way that this team develops guys that are other people's trash, and they become icons for this franchise. So that's great. And then one final note. When roster move wise, Anthony Banda, he got traded to the Minnesota Twins for international pool money. So it wasn't just like we release a player. No, the Dodgers got something out of it. And it seems like it's always the case, because guys that don't have a fit with the Dodgers, other teams are like, hey, we need a cheap left-handed pitcher to come in and help us out of the bullpen. So good on the Dodgers. It's not another player. It's not a prospect. It's not nothing like that. But in the future, international pool money can land you a guy like Roki Sasaki. All right. Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, is Will Klein about to become the Dodgers' next internal bullpen monster, or was that World Series moment lightning in a bottle? Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't want someone who can fake it till he or she makes it, or someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who can check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. Don't forget to follow Locked On Dodgers not only on YouTube, but on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. You can find Travis on social media at Travis Rodgers on X and Instagram. Meanwhile, I'm at Harry Ruiz on X, at Harry_Ruiz on Instagram, and at Harry Ruiz_ on TikTok. Will Klein, one-hit wonder or real deal? A year ago, Will Klein's career was in limbo. DFA'd, AAA uncertainty, future unclear. But by the end of that same day, he was a Dodger. And that changed everything because the Dodgers didn't overhaul him. They just simplified him. Scrap what didn't work, clarity over chaos. And the results, 2.35 ERA, 21 strikeouts in just over 15 innings in 14 appearances. Travis, when we were going through the postseason and going through those rosters, he wasn't on the wild card round. He wasn't on the NLDS round. He wasn't on the NLCS round. Then suddenly he's in the World Series. In Game 3, he delivered one of the most memorable relief performances of the postseason. 4 innings in an 18-inning marathon. But now the question is, can he build on that? Or will it just be a memory for all Dodgers fans that stayed up till near midnight to watch that game?
Yeah, look, I hope it's the first thing you said. I hope it's the beginning of a second, run in his career where he becomes a very effective major league pitcher and pitches in important games and has more, postseason moments that we can all remember. But part of my job here at Locked On Dodgers is to be as honest as I can. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's certainly capable. He demonstrated that. But first of all, I just don't think there's going to be a ton of opportunities on this team. There'll be some, but look, you are what you are. And especially in baseball, you are what you are. The reason that you hear baseball players talk about this all the time. Don't get too high, don't get too low, because the other thing is right around the corner, and you kind of are what you are at the end of each season. And what Will Klein has been throughout his major league career is he's okay. He's a major leaguer, and I don't mean to throw cold water on that, but there are tiers to this. There are guys that are, barely holding on. There are guys that are in the league. There are guys that are important players in the league, and then there are stars, and then there's a very thin slice of megastars like Shohei and Mookie Betts and Aaron Judge. But he's a guy that's just trying to hang in there and trying to pitch in this league. And he had a moment that very few people get to have. It doesn't change any of that. Dodger fans will remember Will Klein fondly forever and ever and ever because of what he did. But the reason we're going to remember that, Harry, is because he's not that guy. It's not that, when Walker Buehler came out of the bullpen, when Walker Buehler was able to, so it's like, yeah, he's that guy. He was a first-round draft pick. He was one of the guys that was the backbone of a World Series team. He's a guy that we've seen over and over again come through in big moments. Will Klein isn't that guy. And I don't mean that in any way to be disrespectful at all. That's why it was so cool. It just came out of nowhere. And that's what this sport is so cool, because once in a while, a guy who is just a guy delivers something that is so incredibly memorable and impactful and unforeseen that we remember it years after it took place. And I think that's what it is. I'd love to be wrong. I hope Will Klein goes out there and is a lockdown bullpen guy, but I just don't think that's what he is. I think what he is what his Baseball Reference page says he is, which is he's a guy that pitches in the major leagues and does okay.
And that's way better than a lot of the prospects that end up just bombing and not being a part of Major League Baseball and just disappearing, going to Japan, going to Korea to extend their career. And the hard part with the sport is that baseball adjusts, Travis. Hitters are going to have video now more extensively. They're just going to be scouting on him. Now there are more expectations. And the question is, can he throw consistent strikes? Can he cut down the walks? Can he hold velocity deep into the air? Can he secure an opening day bullpen spot? That right there is the biggest question of them all, because if he does, then he can prove and show that he deserves a spot in this team. I'm going to be rooting for him. Sure. I just can't say with certainty that it's like he's going to be a weapon instead of just a moment. And if he struggles, the Dodgers still have depth. That's the luxury in this team, where it's like after a couple of bad outings out of the bullpen, it's like, okay, let's go with the next guy that we have available.
Look, he's been on 3 teams in 2 years. He has a career WAR that's in the negative side of the thing. It's like he caught lightning in a bottle, and it was awesome. And the Dodgers don't win the World Series without him. But the idea that somehow he becomes a regular contributor, I think is a long shot. Not impossible, never impossible. But, this is, I think you said it really well, that if in the middle of the season, Will Klein were on another team or in the minor leagues, I don't think would be a surprise at all. Who knows? Maybe history repeats itself. Maybe he becomes the pitching equivalent of Kike Hernandez, who just shows up in the postseason and delivers big moments. But I just don't see it.
Hey, you always need those guys. And look, make no mistake, internal development stories like Klein's are what separates great teams from dynasties. So hopefully they're able to develop him more. Worst case scenario, Travis, he'll always have that game 3 moment. And I can guarantee you there's a lot of folks like Legends Addicts. We send a shout out to them. You were out there yesterday, right?
Yeah, they opened a new store at Hollywood Park Casino. House Rules. Got to hang out with Oral a little bit yesterday. Got to go to the Laker game with Oral last night. It was great.
There you go. I saw a video on social media. I was like, hey, there's Travis right there. So worst case scenario, he can go out there, sign autographs, get paid, and he'll always be remembered right there. And he can always look down on his hand and be like, hey, I got a World Series ring. That's worst case scenario. I hope that he has way more than that, and I'm rooting for him to have way more than that.
I don't know how Will Klein leads his life, but if he's anything like me and likes to have a cold beer every once in a while, Will Klein's never going to have to buy a beer in Los Angeles for the rest of his life. So that's for sure, that he is a made man in the city of LA, no matter what happens moving forward.
No doubt about it. All right, that'll do it for today's pod. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On Monday, we're back because today the players are already out on the field, pitchers and catchers, the batters, the hitters, they're coming up soon, so we're going to be locked and loaded with everything related to spring training, so keep it locked on with us here on Locked On Dodgers. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Dodgers ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnDodgers.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. Travis, we made it. Players are back on the field, and we're going to be able to talk about what's going on there very, very shortly.
I can't wait. I again, like I mentioned, I got to spend a little time with Oral Hershiser yesterday. We were talking about spring training. It got me all fired up all over again. And you're going to hear that snap of that glove. You're going to hear the crack of the bat. And then, spring training games are going to start. And be like, when do the real ones start? And they're going to be here. The WBC is less than a month away. It's just, it's here, Harry. I can't wait.
Mr. Hershiser, open invite. You can crash the podcast whenever you want. We appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it Dodger Blue.